Welcome back for another Portal Fantasy. This week for Origin Stories, I dug back into the Unicorn Chronicles by Bruce Covell, keeping the unicorn theme from our last video. These books sat on my shelves beside the Unicorns of Balinor for many years. When I read the Unicorn Chronicles originally, it was just two books, Into the Land of the Unicorns and Song of the Wanderer. I found out almost 10 years later, Covell released two more books called Dark Whispers and The Last Hunt. This series then was republished as 7 books instead of 4, breaking down the final 2 novels into shorter novels. My library had the original 4 on audio through Libby. The audiobooks were done by Fullcast Audio and had actors for each of the characters. The really fun part was that Bruce Covell himself recorded all the narrator lines, so it was really cool to hear the author telling the story. All 4 books are told from the writings of Grimwald, the story keeper of Luster. It's very similar to Frodo and Bilbo writing about their journeys. Into the Land of the Unicorns was published in 1994 and is about 4 hours on the audiobook. It begins with Kara and her grandmother, Ivy Morris, running from someone following them. They dash into a church, and Ivy tells Kara to run up to the roof while Ivy rings the bell to distract that person. Kara takes Ivy's special amulet with her and ends up jumping from the roof into a free fall. The last thing she hears is someone calling after her, "No, Kara Diana," before she's swallowed by blackness. From there, Kara goes on an adventure in the world of Luster, the land of the unicorns and other magical creatures who escaped there from Earth hundreds of years ago. A cast including the Dimplethumb, Lightfoot, Prince of the Unicorns, Grimwald, the Story Keeper, and many others help Kara reach the Unicorn Queen to give her a message from her grandmother, "The Wanderer is weary." The story continues in Book 2, Song of the Wanderer, published in 1999, which clocks in at about 6 hours. This book sends Kara on a journey back to Earth to rescue her grandmother, the Wanderer. Kara has been learning more and more about her grandmother's adventures as a young girl in Luster and how beloved she was by the many creatures living there. Now, Kara is moving through the forests of Luster to find the best place to cross back over to Earth and rescue Ivy. She must first stop by the Geomancer, Umgama's home. Umgama will be able to use her Earth magic to pinpoint where the crossover must take place, and Kara has 31 days to go to Earth and come back before the worlds shift, and she would end up portaling back to an unknown spot. With previous friends and new friends escorting Kara, she makes it back to challenge the evil beloved and break her grandmother out of the Rainbow Prison. Now, in the audio, I kept hearing Rainbow Prism and Rainbow Prison, and it was really hard to tell the difference, and I think it was used interchangeably, but for all intents and purposes, the Rainbow Prison was a prison to anybody who was in there. From there, we find out that Ivy Morris is actually the lost unicorn heir, Amalia Flickerfoot. So Kara's grandmother becomes Queen of the Unicorns. Super exciting. Before moving on to Book 3, I'll go back and expand a bit on what has been learned about Beloved in the first 2 books. Beloved's story is very much a dark fairy tale. Her father loved her dearly and went out to hunt for a unicorn's healing horn after she falls ill. For months, he treks through the forests of their Earth home, searching. And finally, a unicorn notices her distress and comes to heal Beloved. And this requires the horn to pierce her heart, which happens quite frequently. It's how they communicate as well. Beloved's father happens to return at this exact moment and believes the unicorn is attacking his daughter. The unicorn's head snaps up, breaking off a piece of his horn in Beloved's heart. Father and unicorn battle to the death, leaving Beloved constantly healing and in pain from the unicorn horn for the rest of her life. She has 7 sons and begins her family cult, basically, of the hunters, hunting unicorns in revenge for her father's death and her never-ending pain. The story has been unfolding over the first 2 books, leading to Beloved taking center stage as the villain of the story for the final 2. Book 3 is called Dark Whispers and has a runtime of about 10 hours, nearly double the length of the second book. This book was published in 2008, 9 years after Book 2, which is why I never read it. The story here grows a lot. This is the first time that we move from Kara's perspective to multiple POVs. To me, this signaled a shift from Kara being the focal point of the story since she's accomplished finding her grandmother again, to Kara becoming part of an entire cast, working in tandem to save the world of Luster. It's not just Kara's story anymore, it's the story of survival for the whole world. Here's some of the major storylines, because it does have so many POVs that I'm not going to summarize all of them. Beloved now has one of the amulets, which can portal the wearer between Luster and Earth. She, with the help of the mysterious Whisperer, are working to get an anchor point at the center of Luster so she can lead her cult of hunters to a final hunt of the unicorns. Within the Delver Kingdom, one Delver has been standing against the king, not agreeing with his choice to assist Beloved in exterminating the unicorns. He is exiled and stripped of his name. Then we go to Ian Hunter. He's Kara's father, and he has betrayed Beloved after finding his daughter again. Now he must attempt to stop the woman he has been helping by first finding his wife's spirit that Beloved locked away in the red prism of the Rainbow Prison. He travels through India, finding a few allies to go into the mountains and reach the entrance of the prison to save Kara's mother. Mgama, the geomancer, is working to figure out where Beloved will choose to enter Luster when the Delvers steal a magical object of hers. It's an anchor for the amulet to connect to. She moves to follow these Delvers and stop them from placing the anchor for Beloved. Kara is tasked to go find out the lost story of the Whisperer from the Centaurs. Her group is quickly separated, leaving Kara alone in the Delver dungeons, where she meets our exiled Delver. As a reader, we've seen hints at the Whisperer from other character perspectives as another villainous figure, manipulating the creatures of Luster to help in the goal of destroying the unicorns. This story ends with the anchor point being successfully placed and the portal opening, with Beloved's hunters ready to kill the unicorns. Finally, Book 4, The Last Hunt, was published in 2010 and clocks in about 15 hours. This final novel continues the multi-POV approach as the hunters enter Luster. Beloved is attacking, and the unicorns are in a spot where they aren't sure how to respond. They've never been threatened in that way on Luster and don't know warfare. And conveniently, and I'll speak more on this later, one of the maidens that Beloved brings through to tempt the unicorns studied the art of war and defects to their side to advise them on strategy. It's a little wild. So Ian, at this point, has broken Martha out of prison with the help of an Indian boy named Rajiv and a mysterious man named Fallon. They move into Luster through Beloved's portal to go find Kara, with Fallon only saying he is looking for a friend. Kara is sent to ask one of the dragons to assist in the war, and then finds herself being tracked by the hunters until another man named Elihu appears. He is the one who originally created Luster, and he walks her through transforming into a unicorn to get away from them and keep their blood trackers from working. Rocky, who is our exiled Delver, gathers his cousins and tries to find his teacher, the Delver Wizard, to help in the coming fight. All of these POVs converge to the Oxus Mundi, which is the center of Luster, where Beloved's army is camped and the portal is basically eating the world tree that it was opened in, destroying Luster. So there's been earthquakes all over the place. Here, we're preparing for the final battle, and there's many losses. The creatures of Luster prevail against Beloved. And now that we're through with the very high-level summary, I'll share some of my opinions on this story. First off, I thoroughly enjoyed rereading the beginning of this series and then finding out how much more the world grew afterwards. The detail and world building had a lot more depth than the Unicorns of Balinor, which I did before, the video before, and felt like a more complete story. The characters also held a lot more personality in this. Most of them seemed like they'd lived their own lives and weren't just there to suit the plot. YA wasn't an established age group at this point, but you can feel that these books were definitely not meant to be introductions for young readers for middle grade. They were a bit more advanced for readers with a bit more experience with stories. These books also grew up with the reader, the story leaning into darker and higher stakes plot lines, even showing on-page deaths of multiple characters, which was something I noted was missing from the Unicorns of Balinor. When I finished this series, I also wondered if so much of the children's fiction I remember had a portal fantasy element, because it might be easier for a child to roleplay or imagine if they have familiar surroundings to begin with. I'm not really sure if there's any science to that, but if you know of any studies, drop it into the comments. I'm always interested in finding more about that. For the final two books, there are a handful of main perspectives along with other short POV breaks throughout this story, which I appreciated the scaling of the world and being able to split off with each group to see just what it was going to take to save Luster. It felt similar to me to how Critical Role Campaign 4 is going, with the 3 distinct tables working towards one larger narrative. However, the short chapters required of middle grade and YA novels and the constant switching made pacing feel like a bit of whiplash between characters. I did also note a seeming fascination with the number 7 in the book. I don't think it had a real world or in-world explanation at all. I'm also seeing this in as I'm reading Del Toro Quest for my next Origin Stories video as well. There's 7 gates to luster from Earth, 7 dragons, 7 sons of beloved, the 7 colors of the rainbow prison. It seems to be in use just as an auspicious number, like we see Lucky 7. For Kara, she battles things meant for a much older person throughout this whole series. She's only 12 when she falls into the magical world and is confronted with hundreds of year-old battle. There are also 2 moments that were extraordinary circumstances to put someone that young in. In the first, she has to barter with the leader of the Centaurs for the story of the Whisper. In exchange for that story, the Chiron, the leader, wants Kara to destroy the egg that his life force is bound to and allow him to pass on. The second is very similar, where Beloved is finally captured and demands Kara end it. Kara tries to have empathy for Beloved and moves to heal her instead, taking the horn piece from Beloved's heart. But that removes the piece that's been keeping this woman alive for centuries, that's been healing her, and she just immediately turns to dust. It's a little bit glossed over as the story is ending, but Kara's initial reaction speaks to potentially carrying that moment as a traumatic memory for the rest of her life. I would be traumatized too. These books did not have an all-white Eurocentric cast of characters. There was Ngama, a black woman with earth powers, Rajiv, an orphan from Delhi, who becomes integral to saving Martha Hunter, Li Yun, an acrobat in the Queen's Players entertainment group, and Feng Yuan, a Chinese orphan raised by Beloved. It was a story more diverse than most of the young adult fictions I remember from Scholastic Book Fair days. Again, very Eurocentric, but it is not perfect at all, particularly when it comes to Feng Yuan. I spoke earlier about the deeper characterization this series had than the Unicorns of Balinor. However, with this character, Feng Yuan, she falls completely flat. She's introduced as one of the maidens Beloved brings to Luster to lure in the unicorns to slaughter. When Feng Yuan sees the first unicorn fall, she immediately turns on everything she has been raised to believe and runs from the hunters. Conveniently, the chapter before has the unicorns questioning how they would deal with Beloved since they don't know violent conflict. Then, Feng Yuan comes to them, having studied the art of war. There is nothing else you come to know about this character, and she's brought in at just the right moment, ironically, to make the idea of the unicorns going to war more believable, but to me it wasn't believable that she just appeared with that knowledge. Finally, I love the expanding world, but I feel it expanded too far with the introduction of Fallon, Elihu, and Allura. These 3 were part of a powerful group of people on a higher plane of existence. Elihu, whose name comes from the Book of Job, was punished for creating his own world, and Fallon punished with him. It held many notes of creation myths that aren't fully explored at all. It remains a mystery where they came from and what that means for the greater universe of this story. It's probably too large of a problem for a middle grade YA story, and I also did not think it added much to an already deep conflict happening between Luster and Earth. Overall, this is a solid series for young fantasy readers that even adults can enjoy. I enjoyed rereading it. Next time on Origin Stories, I'll be rereading the first arc of Del Toro Quest. I'm already 2 books in. Join me next month to hear my thoughts on revisiting that adventure.